Welcome to another episode of the Into the Wilderness podcast. On today's show, we'll have Chris Cunningham, a Royal Navy diver, who will be on the Royal Navy and Royal Marines Antarctic Endurance 2016 expedition.
This is going to be a fascinating discussion, talking with a modern-day explorer. It's a slight departure from our usual debate, but adventure is very much at the heart of our Into the Wilderness series, so this was an opportunity that we couldn't pass up. This podcast has been brought to you by the Scottish Association for Country Sports. Welcome to another Into the Wilderness podcast. This week we've got a very special program for you. We've got Chris Cunningham joining us over a Skype call, and he is on one of the latest expeditions with the Royal Navy, and we're going to hear all about that and everything that they're going to be doing out there and how that harks back to a major event in our history. So I'm going to let Daryl lead off with the initial questions because Chris is actually a Royal Navy diver, and so was my brother. In fact, the two of them used to dive together. So I'm going to let Daryl lead away with this, and I'll come in when I think I've got something intelligent to say.
Hi, Chris. So obviously I know you quite well. We worked together for a number of years. But basically, for everyone else that doesn't know you, we would like to know a little bit about your background, your life, where you came from, all the way up to what made you join the Navy. So we'll start with that.
So I come from Glenrothes, and that is in Fife, in the east coast of Scotland. Just lived the normal childhood, playing football, running about hills, running about farms. Nothing too drastic to report back, to be honest with you. And I grew up, I didn't know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go or anything like that. I was a bit, lost in a way. And then I knew I wanted to do more with my life, and the chance came up to join the Navy. So I jumped it, and here I am.
And of course, you joined the best branch in the Navy.
Yeah, you could say. You could definitely say.
Well, I'm curious, Chris. I mean, I know from my brother's point of view why he ended up, becoming a diver. But what was it that drew you to that in particular?
It was quite simple. I was looking through the pamphlet that the Navy gives you, and they're like, "Oh, you can do this, you can do that." And I seen diving. I thought that's great. I've never dived before, but I loved the water. Done a bit of swimming and all of that, and then went into the careers office to chat a bit more about it. And they said that no one from Fife, that they hadn't put anyone through. They said it's too hard, and I probably wouldn't be able to pass it. So that was a challenge that I needed, I guess, when I came.
And let's face it, the pretty pictures and the pamphlets really draw you in.
Yeah, they sell it well. It doesn't quite reflect in the harsh reality of it, but yeah, it's good.
No, not at all, really, not at all. So we've talked a little bit about, obviously, up to joining the Navy.
Yeah.
And so we'll go into basically your day-to-day job right now. I know that right now you're part of Northern Diving Group.
Hang on, Daryl. I want to hear about the training from his point of view.
Okay.
Let's talk about that first.
Let's talk about the training, as in your dive training, and that obviously my brother's heard from my point of view. So make sure you tell him that it was as hard as I've told everyone else.
What your modest point of view?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was told by a good PO diver, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So,
yeah. Right.
But I think for everyone else out there, I think it's really interesting to hear what you guys go through to be a bomb disposal diver. That is your correct title, was it?
Mine clearance diver.
Sorry, mine clearance diver.
Mine clearance diver.
So just give us an idea of how that training goes, and then what you end up doing afterwards.
Yeah. So initially we join up. Everyone that's going to be a rating that joins up goes through Rally, That's just basic militarisation, getting you folding the correct way and just trying to weed out
shaving your head.
the weak. Effectively, yeah. Then after that, it's more when the fun starts, to be honest. It's, spend, what's it about? It's about 6 months, is it, Baz? Down at the island?
Yeah, I think it's in total after you go to DODS and everything. It's 7 or 8 months, but it's 6 months at the island at least dive training, I think.
Yeah. So you spend 6 months down Horsey Island, Portsmouth, where on a day-to-day basis you're either fizzing up and getting beasted, or you're in the water diving, and the best way for you to learn is by learning through the painful way of your mistakes.
and your mistakes are sometimes extraordinarily painful.
Yeah, they tend to be quite painful. But no, we do a whole bunch of different sets when you go into the training. And I know myself, I went through a winter course, so I was doing 4 hours in the water, like 1 degree water, maybe a bit.
My
bit
course
less at times.
My course was a winter course as well.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant, and the dry bags that they give you don't keep you particularly dry.
Yeah, you might as well have a wetsuit actually.
Yeah. But there's quite a lot of people drop out of it. I think in my selection there was 25 of us on it. And then how many passed? 6 people passed our class in the end. So yeah, it's a fair dropout rate, and that's the.
I mean, just going for mine to give people an example that obviously this dropout rate is normal. On mine, I think the first selection week there was 38 people, and by the end of the week they had 10. And when I finished my course, there was only 4 of us left.
Yeah, exactly. But that's exactly what they need. Otherwise, everyone could do it. And there's only, I think it's 300 of us in a navy of 40-odd thousand. So, yeah, it's a bit of an accomplishment. Which I tell you, it's a pat in the back, like.
Yeah, it sure is.
And sorry, Daryl. After completing that, I know that Daryl ended up going on 2 deployments after that. What was your process going from that to Northern Diving Group that you're in now? Yeah,
so passed out the dive training, and then I was lucky enough to join Northern Diving Group as a diver too, just for a short period of time and get a wee trip away with them before I went on ship, which gave me a taste of what I wanted to do effectively. Because when you go on ship, you're based more Navy, so to say. You're on a ship, you're going away.
It gave you a light at the end of the tunnel, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
Oh.
Yeah, so when I went onto ship, we went straight into a Baltic deployment, which was 5 months of visiting different cities around Europe. Pretty much.
You did exactly the same deployment as my first deployment, which was a Baltic deployment. I'd like to say we were working, but it was more of a drinking deployment than anything else.
I think you might have relieved me, actually.
I did, actually. Well, I was in Estonia when I relieved the crew, I think.
All right, yeah. But in fairness, I've done some better diving on that deployment. We got rid of a few World War II mines. Fair bit of diving on that Baltic deployment. Some harsh waters outside Poland, and yeah, it was really good.
Just give for everybody else who hasn't heard these stories before, just explain how it works from finding a mine to essentially disposing of it. I've been lucky enough to see a shoreside removal of a mine where I actually. This was up in Skye actually when Daryl was on deployment up there.
No, I wasn't on deployment. I was just on duty.
Just on duty. Well, so I have actually had a chance to see it. But for those people who haven't seen it, how does it work underwater?
Yeah, so when you're based on ship, the way they go about it is the ship's going up and down lanes and they're mine hunting. They pick out a bunch of contacts they picked up using the sonar. They then, from that period of time, they send what they call the Sea Fox, which is a small underwater submarine. They drive that down, they check it out. If that is the real deal, then they send ourselves in. A lot of the time, the Sea Fox isn't working, so the divers are diving every contact, and that's when you're busy, to say the least.
Or you end up rescuing the Sea Fox when it's gone out.
Yeah, quite a lot. So from that period, we then deploy the dive team. The dive team heads out. They use how do you describe it? I've not done it. Well, so the dive team dive it anyway. They pack it with explosives. You were prepared with explosives before you went out there. You pack it with explosives. You come up. You check everything's okay on ship. Your boat's good, and then you set off with the correct delay. From that period of time, you make your way back to the boat, or you definitely get yourself out of there, and then it goes off after like a 10-minute fuse or a 5-minute fuse, depending upon what you set, really.
And of course, you forgot to mention there that especially in one of the problems I had when I was in like the North Sea is there's a lot of underwater pipelines. So I'm sure you were actually going to say that if the mine or the piece of ordnance is in an incorrect position, well, the most dangerous part of it would actually have been having to move it from a different position to then pack it with explosives.
We just did a good job like that this week, actually.
I saw on the news. Just tell us what it was.
So it was an old World War II mine. It was just outside Gourock on the west coast of Scotland. We dived it, realised that it was what we thought it was. We came back, had a planned operation, put what's called a mine lifting bag on it. We ended up having to put 2 on it. It was quite a big mine, and we had to tow it 2 miles down the road, down the river, away from the town of Gourock, which had been half evacuated in case it had gone off.
So it was right next to the town then.
It was right. It was quite close, and because of the size of the mine and the proximity to town, had that gone off when we were moving it, then there could have been some major issues there.
And of course, I mean, this is coming up very shortly. I was going to ask you what you do on your day-to-day life in the Navy, in your role that you're doing right now, but just tell everyone what you were doing this morning. I mean, this will give you a good idea on a day-to-day life of what you do. Where were you and what were you doing this morning? Because it was on the news.
Yeah, well, it all set off yesterday in the middle of the rugby.
Nightmare.
I wouldn't even bring this up. Last 10 minutes of the rugby, I'm sitting there, I'm cheering on Scotland. I get a phone call telling me the job's on, get everyone down. So straight away, work clothes on, combat's on, get everyone, get the bang, the explosives, and we then set off for Aberdeen, blue lighting all the way. We get up there, we go and have a look at the mine. It was an anti-tank mine from World War II. So we had a look at that, but it was dark by this point, so there's nothing we could do about it in that period of time. We can't do DEMS in the dark because you can't confirm a clear range. So we left the police guarding it all night, effectively.
Yeah, I saw that on the news.
yeah, I'm sure they were really tough at that. And then, 9 o'clock this morning, we were down there first thing. we set up the dams, and we set up a 100-metre cordon and blew it up down on Aberdeen Esplanade.
And just to confirm to any press that may listen, it was in fact the Navy bomb disposal and not the Army bomb disposal that was in the papers today.
Yeah,
it was definitely you, wasn't it? It was definitely you.
Oh, it was definitely me.
Does that happen quite a lot, where you get the Army taking credit for your work inadvertently?
Yeah. It's the combats give it away. It's quite common, to be honest. You never seem to get it the other way around, though. I'll say that.
Well, so I mean, obviously we've just had a quick snippet of your day-to-day life. Now, obviously on Northern Diving Group, I know myself what's involved, but can you just give us 2 weeks? So obviously a duty week, and then let's say a harbour week. Just explain what those two are and what you do.
Yeah. So I'll talk you through this week that I've just done. I was IED duty. So as part of IED duty, we cover the west coast of Scotland for IED cover. So we've dealt with things in the past, like the Neil Lennon letter bombs. I think the lads were on the scene when the Glasgow 7/7 bombings happened at the airport.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Yeah. 7/7. I'm terrible with dates. It's not 7/7, is it? That's London.
It was where they drove into the front of the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the lads were on the scene down in Glasgow when that happened. But as part of that duty, I am at 10 minutes' notice at all times, ready to leave. It's happened a few times. Recently, I was called out into Glasgow for a grenade in a man's house. There's been some quite high-profile cases, but I'll probably better not talk too much about them, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. As the week progressed on, I ended up having to cover our friend JB and the CMD roster. So that means that anything that turns up on the beach below the high water mark is the Navy's effectively.
So you went from your IED duty. So if anyone that's not listening, an IED is an improvised explosive device, and you basically changed into an EOD, which is your explosive ordnance disposal. But you're both basically doing both during the week.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That was just purely helping a friend out, to be honest. But as part of that duty, we ended up on a job in the Isle of Islay.
So you get around a lot.
Yeah, we cover from Liverpool north, effectively, including all of the islands. So we can find ourselves in a normal duty week going from Liverpool up to the Isle of Harris. And yeah, it's a great way to see the country. Let's say it that way.
I think when I was at Northern Diving Group, I saw more of the Isles than I've ever done in my entire life in a very short space of time.
Yeah. I find myself in strange, peculiar little towns in the middle of nowhere. And it's one of the most interesting parts of the job. You know, the strange sights that you see and the beautiful sights that you see when you're hiking up a hill to find something, it's brilliant. So I could rant on about it for hours.
So take us through. Obviously, you're not duty all the time. You do that once every. Well, it's meant to be once every 4 weeks. You're meant to do the bomb disposal duty.
Roughly.
And then the rest of the time, you're basically harbour or doing something in your section. Can you just explain to everyone what is involved in harbour? Because obviously everybody knows in Faslane they have the nuclear submarines there, and also it's a very busy port. So can you just explain what you would end up doing in harbour?
So just a harbour week, we're at call for the submarines pretty much, and anything that's happening around the harbour. So on a normal day-to-day basis as harbour duty, we can find ourselves underneath the submarine for hours, carrying out basic maintenance, some quite complex jobs as well, in fairness. we can then be shipped across to go and work on the ships. It's a very wide-ranging duty, where we can get called into many different things. But harbour, in basic terms, is any diving job that comes in that's not obviously bomb disposal, as the other duty lads deal with that. The harbour team's going to be dealing with that effectively.
And of course, that also involves flying across the world to do maintenance on submarines or whatever it may be as well, to America, for example.
That's not quite harbour duty. It falls on a different bracket. But we find ourselves across America, out in some strange countries, fixing submarines. But it's all part of the fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we'll just touch one other thing that like Northern Diving Group does. Are you NSRS trained? Are you?
I am NSRS.
So would you be able to just explain very briefly, because it is actually it's a simple but slightly complicated thing, just very simply what that is and what Northern Diving Group does in that part of it, because it's something that goes on that nobody really knows about, and it's quite a big thing, really.
Oh, it's a huge thing. So NSRS is something the British, the French, and the Norwegians have come into together, and it is the NATO submarine rescue system. So if a NATO submarine was to go down anywhere in the world, the NSRS system would be on site within 72 hours, I believe.
I believe it's that,
Don't quote me on that. Yeah. And they would effectively, put in proper layman's terms, they'd send down a mini submarine, it's the RCO, that would clag onto a submarine. They'd then rescue a number of whoever they could at that time. They'd bring it up. That would then connect onto the NSRS system. Now, the NSRS system is just basically is a number of chambers put together, recompression chambers put together, in order to decompress the
submariners and the divers.
Yeah, exactly. In a safe manner where it's going to do as little harm to them as possible.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Now we.
I actually just had one question just before we go on to something that's really, really exciting, and that is just. Can you just explain what the dangers are to the diving that you guys do? Because everyone knows that diving can be dangerous. Obviously, you guys are diving on bombs. I mean, that's a whole different danger. Yeah. But the bomb and explosives aside, what are the major dangers for diving?
So the body is not designed to be underwater at that depth. So the deeper you go, and the longer time that the longer the period that you spend underwater, increases the chance of your body picking up an injury effectively. Whether that be a decompression illness, whether that be as simple as problem in your ears. I don't want to go too in depth with the illnesses and that you can get, but yeah. Put simply, the body is definitely not designed to be down there. So if you follow out the correct procedures, then you're 99 times out of 100, you'll be perfectly fine. But there are instances where there's just nothing you can do about it, and I've heard that your body's not going to be too great when you come back up. That's a fairly hazy way of describing it.
Yeah. Daryl, you've got quite a good example. I was going to say good experience, but it wasn't a good experience, but a good example of the potential dangers that could come about all of a sudden without you even realizing that something was wrong.
Are you talking about me going blind?
Yeah, I was referring to that.
Oh, okay. Well, I think Chris may know about this one actually, and I mean, but basically the short of it was I was on my Baltic deployment. It was the end of the year, and we had just found a 500-pound German airdrop bomb, and it was my job to go down, put the explosives on it. It went absolutely perfectly. Dive was perfect. like you said, if you follow everything correctly, it's probably going to be all right. But then when I came up, about an hour afterwards, I started to lose my vision. And I basically, everything was just blurry for like 2-3 days, and eventually, I got a lot of medical attention. I was fine after 3 days, but it just shows you that sometimes diving is very unpredictable. You can do everything right, and yet it still sometimes throws you a curveball.
But sometimes it is literally how hard you've been pushing your body before you've even got in the water.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't take that, the physical aspect of your body. And it's just like a good example is, sadly, when I was going through training, a man passed away down in Horsey Island, and that was because he'd taken a heart attack under the water.
Yeah, it shows you how hard you're working.
Yeah, so he's taken a heart attack in the water, and that's not just if that happens on the surface and just walking down the street, you can deal with that and you can see it. But when that happens in the water and you're by yourself, you've got some major issues here. And it's not like you can turn around and get your phone out and phone 999 or anything like that.
Yeah.
You're just you're relying on your dive partner to sort you out the best that he can. But he's not. It's a very hard thing to.
It's limited underwater what you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're going to move on, and we're going to move on to this very exciting expedition that you're going on, and this is Royal Navy and Royal Marines led expedition, Antarctic Endurance 2016. So, would you be able to tell us about their expedition to begin with?
Okay. So the whole expedition is based around Shackleton. Obviously, it's 100 years since Shackleton was down there, and what we're going to do is we're going to sail from the Falklands. We're going to head south down to Antarctica, visit a number of spots where Shackleton was, conduct some surveys. We're then going to head back up to South Georgia, and then cross the South Georgian glaciers like Shackleton famously did to save his men.
Yep.
And then we're going to head back up to the Falklands. All in all, it's going to take us 6 weeks of some of the most arduous seas in the world.
Yeah, I mean,
some of the most unpredictable glaciers in the world right now as well.
We'll go into this in a little bit because I'm going to ask you the question. But I just doing some research on it today. They were basically saying that obviously when Shackleton did it, it was nails. But due to the ice actually melting, the glaciers melting, the crevasses and stuff that you will have to cross now are even bigger.
Yeah. The glaciers is harder than what Shackleton did, but in fairness, we won't be quite going through what Shackleton did and getting there, or our body certainly won't be in as bad shape, or I hope not anyway. I'd be pretty disappointed if I am, but yeah.
So we have some information on Shackleton, but would you be able to, because there'll be a lot of people that have actually heard his name, because he's a very famous person, but don't really know his story.
Or even what he did.
And it's quite an incredible story. I think there is actually a movie you could watch. I think there is for the lazy people out there.
I think there's a TV series. I remember.
There was. You're right. There was a three-part series. You're right.
Well, so would you be able to just tell us about the Shackleton expedition and kind of what's inspired this one, I guess?
Okay, so this expedition was the brainchild of Commander Tim Winter, and he's based this around Shackleton's great expedition. So when Shackleton was down there, he had went down there setting off to be the first man to get to the pole and then keep going effectively and cross the whole of Antarctica. But once he got down there in his ship, Endurance, it was trapped in the ice, which massively ruined his plans. And when that happened, it was all about saving his men effectively. How could Shackleton save his men? And this is where our expedition is kind of trying to jump in and learn what we can from that in regards to how the Navy could create great leaders like Shackleton. But anyway, I'm diversifying. But so Shackleton's down there. He's he's got his men, and they'd come up with many different plans. They had a great joiner craftsman who made them some huts at the time to try and way out. That wasn't working out so well, so they decided that they had to cross parts of Antarctica to get to a place called Elephant Island, where they would set off for South Georgia in the lifeboats, effectively. So they had to, if you can imagine it, they had to drag these lifeboats across Antarctica in terrible conditions, and the bodies, are slowly dying at this point. All they're eating at this point is stuff that they can catch, so
very limited food, and at some point, obviously you might even say they ate their dogs. I think when they started their expedition, I
hate referring to that part.
It is. It is. It's a horrible part, and their dogs had puppies and everything when they're out there, and unfortunately, the only way for them to survive was to eat their dogs. But when you look at it on a survival point of view, the dogs probably would have died too.
Oh, the dogs certainly would have died. And they went out and clubbed seals and grabbed penguins, grabbed whatever they can, and come the end of it, they were in pretty good nick. They weren't in a bad shape. But going back to it, so they've made it to a place called Elephant Island, which we've all been going to, and I've only seen pictures of it. It looks one of the most inhospitable places around. It's it makes St Kilda look like a holiday camp.
Wait, I just have sorry to interrupt you, but just to give people an idea of how long to that period in the story, Elephant Island was 497 days into the expedition.
Yes.
It's just a phenomenal period of time to think that, there they were unsupported to that point.
Mm-hmm. No, and when they've made that great, sorry, I'll explain it a bit better. So they've made it to Elephant Island, and they've left one group, a group of them on Elephant Island hiding under the lifeboats, effectively, two lifeboats. And they've sent two more lifeboats off, Shackleton, and one lifeboat with a number of men, and another lifeboat, and they were both stayed together. And that was the final push they were going to do to save their men. They made it across to South Georgia by some miracle. I think they got 3 sightings at the sun to try and work out where they were in that period of time. So they had a master navigator. So they got to the south end of the they ended up in the south end of the island, but they struggled at first to find a place to come ashore. They ended up they found a great cave where they took shelter. They tried to recover. It took them 3 days to recover, if I remember right. And even then, they had to leave some of the men behind. Then Shackleton went for it. He went to save his men.
They were looking for a whaling station, weren't they?
Yeah, there was a whaling station in the north end of the island. Is it Grytviken? Yeah, so they'd been there earlier on in the expedition. They'd set off from around that area. But so they went for it. They went across South Georgia, hit Shackleton and a few men. Some men had to be left behind, and they done it all in a one-off. Didn't stop. They only had these men in mind. They made it across there. He turned up he turned up at the whaling station. No one knew who he was. He was, this shell of a man asking for help. And obviously, everyone will know who everyone is in these whaling stations. It's not a huge community. So he went to the harbour master and said, I'm Ernest Shackleton, and I need to help my men. I need to save my men. And yeah, so the whalers some of the whalers headed around the island, rescued the rest of the men from then Ernest Shackleton was assisted, from the Chilean Navy, who then went south and saved the rest of his men. Not one soul was lost in that.
And that is amazing, to not lose one man in those conditions.
Yeah.
And it, the length of that time that expedition took, it's quite easy to lose hope. And I guess it was just him being a good leader, and also the men must have been very mentally strong as well.
Yeah, he is. A lot of it was down to leadership. Like when they were taking off their stuff off the ship before it was eventually crushed by the ice, they were told that they're allowed, I think it was 20 kilograms. That's how much personal possessions they could have. He says, except for one thing, and that was the banjo, because that was how does it put, medicine for the ears and medicine for the mind. So
a morale booster.
Yeah, exactly. If you're sitting around feeling bad and you start hearing the banjo getting plucked and everybody's singing along, it soon picks up the spirits, I'd imagine.
As long as it wasn't the dueling banjos, I suppose.
Sorry?
I said as long as it wasn't the dueling banjos, it was a Deliverance reference.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you've just explained Shackleton's expedition. Now, you're heading off on this expedition, but it wasn't a case of you just went, I want to go on this expedition, and off you go. There was training involved, and there was also a selection process involved. So we'll start with the selection process. How did it begin? How did you hear about this, and secondly, what was involved in the selection process?
Okay, so I've spent the past 18 months of my life going through this selection process, and it all stemmed from one Monday morning. I was sat in front of the computer looking through the internet at work, and there was an advertisement on it asking for people to go in for this expedition. That started off with a weekend in Wales. There was a meet and greet, some commando leadership tasks, just getting to know people and getting to know what everyone was about. I think there must have been about 80 of us there. Don't quote me on that.
80 as in 80?
Yeah, 80, sorry, 80. It was a wide range of people. I know in my room alone, there's quite a famous adventurer, Seb Coulthard. He was in my room. He ended up, he pulled out of the expedition process to go on another expedition from fire to ice, but unfortunately just broke his hand. So that's about an hour. But anyway, and there was an ultramarathon runner. There was all sorts of people from all different backgrounds. So after that weekend, we did a couple of weekends in Wales, up in Snowdonia, up in the hills. We climbed Mount Snowdown. I think that's more just to tick a box. Yeah. It's very touristy. Went on the Tratan. Then the week after, the month after, we've spent a night out in the most horrendous weather. I've been camping in many times up the hills and sat out some storms, but this was up there. It wrecked about 5 of our tents. We were just shoveling people into whatever tent we can. And I think there was 4 of us in this small 2-man tent. There was myself, there was one of the other guys that's on it, one of the Marine Mountain leaders, Matt Hoy, and a couple of girls. And it was just, you were crammed in.
At least were you warm?
Yeah, I was absolutely roasted. Could not be warm. I thought I had a bad night, and then I got up in the morning, and there was a scene of devastation. There was some people had some horrendous stories coming out of that, but that was the build up to that was running about the hills of Snowdonia National Park. But that kind of stuff's great for me. I walk many bends. That's my hobby effectively. So I love that kind of thing. But after that's where it starts getting a bit more difficult for myself. start talking about sailing. And at the start, I was one horrendous sailor, and I've not got the strongest stomach in the world, but that's getting better. So yeah, we done a week sailing. We got a competent crew ticket out of it. We were in Portsmouth. So we set out from Portsmouth and went up and down the English Channel. So yeah, again, some challenging moments. Then after that, where were we after that? Yes, that was at the Cairngorms. Went on a week's winter mountaineering up in the Cairngorms. That was brilliant. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Right on our doorstep.
Yes, our back garden.
Our back garden.
Yeah, exactly. It was good for me. I didn't have to travel half the length of the country to make it for once, which was always nice.
Yeah.
But again, we camped out. We were up and down the hills. We're just trying to not weed out anybody, but certainly make people think about what's involved in Antarctica.
Think twice about it.
Exactly.
Make sure they really want to be there.
Some people tend to go in with blinkered eyes, and they like the idea of it, but they're not quite sure about the actual reality of it. But there's some people that I didn't expect to come out as strong as an ox in it, and other people that I thought were very, very strong weren't quite as strong up the hills. So after that, we had another week sailing. We took a yacht down from Portsmouth down to Channel Islands, down Jersey, places like that. Then headed back up down to Plymouth. We took 7 days out there. After that period, that's when things started to get cut down, when numbers started to dwindle. And from there, where did we go after there? That's a good question.
Well, I saw you did some glacier training, so that must have been, was that part of the selection?
Yeah. Sorry, that was later. We went on the Three Peaks, more as a good team building exercise, but that was just after a bit of a press launch as sorts down in London. We sailed the yacht Explorer that we're going to be taking down south under London Bridge.
Very nice. I think I saw pictures of that.
Yeah, that was epic. That's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
So you sailed straight up the Thames into London?
Yeah, took it round from Portsmouth up the Thames straight through to London. Just so happens the Navy's got a Royal Navy Reserve base just under London Bridge, which worked out very well. Then we sailed up and down, went under London Bridge twice, done a bit of TV work. It was a great time, really, really good time.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. And so obviously, I mean, how many people are now? How many people have been selected now to go on this expedition?
We're 11.
11 of you.
Yeah, I've left out one quite big part.
Okay.
So we've just done a week's glacier training out in Austria, which is truly, truly immense. I've never been on a glacier before, and I never expected to see the vastness of the glacier, the colours that come out of it, the sheer. Although it looks nice and calm from when you're quite a way away. Sorry. Once you get up there, the ruggedness of it and the danger of a glacier really sets in.
So was that part of the selection process, going to the glacier, or was that your training beginning?
It was the final part of the selection process. We were down to 15 people at that point.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm not great with the numbers. Around about that number, and also just after that, the final 11 were selected.
So you've kind of mentioned, obviously, the selection. That was training at the same time, really, in the selection.
Yes, exactly.
So what have you got going forward training? You must have some other stuff coming up.
Yeah. It's all a bit in the air at the moment. We are looking at doing something up in the Cairngorm shit again. We will be doing some stuff out there just before we set off in the Falkland Islands itself. There's a number of things in the pipeline, but there's not too much confirmed at the moment. There's talk of sailing as well. So yeah, we're just waiting to see where we go with that.
So,
and obviously, my own personal training, you are as good as, or you are as hard as you train. So I'm pretty sure every single person on that expedition is training quite hard at the moment.
Now, this was a question that I was actually going to come to slightly later on. Now, the Navy is they're pretty good when you're doing an expedition like this to give you time off work. But on the other hand, as you just said today, you were working today on a bomb job. So there is a huge amount on you to train in your own time as well. It's not just a case of you're going on an expedition, you've got 6 months off to train for it, hunky dory, that on you go. You do have to do your other job at the same time.
Yeah, it's a massive juggling act. The Northern Diving Group, in fairness, I played an absolute blinder with myself. And they sorted me out the best way that they could. It's the hardest working diving team in the Navy, and somehow they managed to juggle things around. People done me favours, covering duties, so on and so forth. A lot of the stuff was done at the weekend, so I was giving up a lot of my own free time, which the wife was ready to murder me about at some end.
Yeah, as if you don't spend enough time away.
Yeah, exactly. It's an ongoing battle. But no, the Northern Diving Group were great, and we've got a couple of people up there that helped me quite a lot.
So Chris, what are you actually doing? What is your personal training regime to get yourself, fit and ready for this?
It's simple for myself. It's getting up in the hills as much as I can. Doing a bit
carrying
of
weight as well.
Yeah, exactly. Carry as much weight as I can at the time, up in the hills, bit of running, weights, just what you'd imagine really. I'm just trying to get out in the yacht a bit more, trying to get my sea legs a bit better, but no, there's a number of ways that I'm trying to improve what I've got right now, so that I'm ready for January.
So, what kind of kit are you actually taking on this expedition? Like personal kit, what will you be carrying? Stuff like that. Just give us an overview of the kind of kit that you're going to have on you.
This is kind of up for discussion at the moment. We are working through what we need and what we want for heading south at the moment. So nothing's really been confirmed, but the obvious ones that we'll all know is we're going to have our winter walking boots, we're going to have our crampons, we're going to have our ice axes, we're going to have top-end clothing, that will protect us against the elements, both for the sailing end of the expedition as well as the glacier part itself. We're not going to be skimping on what we're getting. I don't think you can go down to a place like Antarctica and not fully prepare for that.
No, not at all. It would be slightly foolish to skimp on your kit, wouldn't it? If you're traveling all the way down there.
Chris, I was wondering, would you be able to maybe go into a little bit more detail about exactly what you guys are going to be doing down there? You've explained kind of the route that you're going to follow and the period of time that it's going to take you, and the fact that you're sailing down. But there is a lot of different things and aspects of the trip that you're going to go through, over the 6 weeks.
Yeah. So the whole thing is based. Sorry, the whole expedition is based around developing leaders. So the whole purpose of the expedition is that, so that we'll be sailing down to Antarctica. During that period of time, we'll be working on our leadership skills, trying to bring the best out of ourselves that way, and trying to learn from each other and what we can get out of it. Once we're down to Antarctica and we've sailed down there, conquering some of the toughest seas in the world, we'll be heading ashore. Sorry. Yeah, we'll be heading ashore. We'll get on Elephant Island. We'll be visiting some of the great places that Shackleton went. The whole route's on our website. I'll give a shameless plug to the Antarctic Endurance.co.uk.
Don't worry, I'll tell everyone again, and I will put a link in this podcast to your Facebook and your website at the end of this. Now you're saying obviously you're sailing down, you're going on land. Now sailing has its own dangers. I mean, the sea that you're crossing is notorious for massive seas, and you're not really on a big vessel. I mean, these are sailing boats that you're on. So obviously sailing brings its own dangers, and people can pretty much picture the dangers involved in sailing. But can you just go through a small amount and the dangers in sailing, but then the dangers of the expedition once you're on land, the kind of things that you're going to face when you're actually doing this expedition?
Okay, so the danger of sailing's simple. There's that much happening on a boat. Ropes going everywhere, the boom coming across sort of sails. There's a number of things that can happen. Obviously, in high seas, you can be swept over the side. You can pick up injuries very, very easily. Then you start thinking a bit further apart out of that, and then think about the sea itself. It's going to be full of icebergs. Obviously, icebergs, as you can see, can do some really, really bad, big damage to some big ships. Never mind just a yacht like our own.
Are you, just out of curiosity, are the yachts reinforced in any way for ice? I'm assuming they must be.
Yeah, the yacht is safe as get. The guy that runs it, the yacht, is a guy called Steve Wilkins. And I met Steve down in London, and if that man knows every single inch of his yacht, inside and out, and he's had that yacht down that way before. He's done many. The yacht's been chartered by some big names down there, National Geographic, a few others. Well, I'll not bang on about that too much. But yeah, the yacht's safe, effectively. The yacht is safe.
Okay, so going on to the dangers on land, what kind of thing are you expected to face when you're on land now?
It's the ruggedness of Antarctica, isn't it? The high winds, the ice, the glaciers.
What kind of temperature are you expected to be facing when you're there?
We're high wind chill, getting down to minus 35, potentially.
Yeah, so much colder than probably anyone has experienced in the UK.
Yeah, much colder than I've ever experienced before. So yeah, it's something that's quite exciting.
In terms of clothing for that kind of temperatures, do you have to take into account the kind of material that your clothing and footwear is made of?
Yeah, definitely. The kit is vital down there, isn't it? Everything you need, it's got to be the top kit. Yet again, like many of the listeners will know, we'll be working along the lines of the layering system. How many layers that we're going to need that day. The last thing we want to be doing is sweating. If you're sweating down there, then you've got some major issues. But that also takes in, you have to think about how hard you're working there. If you're working too hard and you're sweating, minus 35 degree winds are going to take.
That'll cause its own problems.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, you've explained kind of what your expedition, why you're going there, to develop yourselves and leadership and all that. But that's not only why you're going there. Is there a scientific reason as well? Are you doing some research or anything while you're down there?
Yeah, we're conducting a couple of surveys for the Royal Geographical Society. I'm not too sure the ins and outs of that at the moment. I think that's still getting discussed, what they want to happen down there. So, yeah, we'll wait and see what's going to happen with that.
That's brilliant. Now, I just want to talk to you about funding and funding the expedition. I only know a tiny amount about where your funding's come from the expedition, but from what I've read, is most of it is coming from donations. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, you'd be perfectly correct.
It seems incredible to me. That,
I mean, what? Not only is that incredible, that's also how Shackleton pretty much funded his expedition. His expedition was completely funded by private people. In fact, the British government did give him some money, which of course you'll be getting some from the Navy. Almost the same way, you're being funded, by donations.
Yeah, well, obviously Shackleton famously started naming things after people that had given him a lot of money. For example, the famous boat, the James Caird, for his saving lifeboat. I remember right, they named all the dogs after schools and that, giving them money. Shackleton was getting money in from everywhere. We've not quite been at that stage ourselves. We've got some big sponsors come in and helped us out. Genuinely, the support we've had from sponsors has been flabbergasting, to be honest with you.
Which is great, because obviously I don't really know what the sponsors are. I need to look into it more, but it's great that small companies and all the way through to big companies and these sponsors are doing this. More people should be sponsoring expeditions like this, because they are incredible.
It's a very hard thing to do, is go about getting sponsorship, I believe. We've had the feelers out there, and we've done quite well. I think other expeditions, there's some great ideas kicking around for expeditions, and people just can't get the funding for it. I'm not saying like every expedition has to be massively expensive and need a lot of funding. Some of the
Yeah, but So I was just saying, obviously you're correct. I mean, sometimes expeditions, they don't need lots of funding, but nowadays I would say that most of them require quite a bit of money.
Yeah, especially if you're going on to the other side of the world. I mean, Daryl and I do quite a lot of what would, I suppose, be classed as mini expeditions, if you like, and we do that on a very, very, very tight budget. The idea of exploring and expeditions is kind of at the heart of everything that we're doing now, which is why we find this trip particularly fascinating. Although I don't know if I would really like such cold temperatures.
Have you heard of? Well, you probably have heard of a man called Alistair Humphreys who he kind of spearheads the micro adventure, doesn't he?
No, I was just going to move on to this on personal heroes alive and dead, and I know that you've mentioned him before, and I've actually met him once, he was a very good speaker, and of course, if anyone doesn't know about him, he's cycled the world, and I think, don't quote me on this, he did it for about £7,000. Took him 4 years.
He did do it for £7,000.
£7,000 in 4 years. So there's your point right there. The expeditions don't actually need to cost a lot. £7,000 for 4 years traveling the world. I mean, you couldn't actually do that any other way, really. But I mean, that is
you couldn't live for 7 months in Edinburgh on £7,000.
Exactly. He went through some arduous times, though. I think
I'm not saying it was plain sailing for £7,000 over 4 years, but I mean, what other personal heroes do you have or look up to? Especially coming into this expedition. People like that.
So Alistair Humphreys, I love that. His idea of a micro adventure that really got my thought process going, and we've done it a number of times at work where we've went out in the afternoon, quickly ran up a hill, ran up a few bends, dropped down, built a campfire, slept out, and then ran into work the next day. And it's a great way to freshen yourself up, and a good way of remembering just what would normally be a normal night.
Yeah, I mean, basically when he was talking, he was basically saying, that try and sleep out in the stars, at least once a month. There's almost no excuse. You have a few hours when you get home when you finish work, to go and do something like you've just done there. I really enjoyed listening to him talk. But on you go, carry on with what you were saying.
There's a bunch of kind of modern day adventurers. Obviously, like every person looks up to Ranulph Fiennes. We all know what Ranulph Fiennes done.
Yeah,
we all know he's the true inspiration.
Quoted the greatest living explorer right now, which it's very hard to argue with that. I mean, what he's done is absolutely incredible, and for people that don't know, he actually has a fund. I think it's the Transglobal Trust, where he basically tries to get money together for people doing expeditions like what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Is that where Ed Stafford got his money from? For one of his...
I think
walking
for walking the Amazon, I think he may have.
Sorry, say again.
Well, we were just saying that we believe that part of the funding for Ed Stafford's Walking the Amazon might have actually been from the Sir Ranulph Fiennes Trust, but it might not be. I'm sure I read that somewhere.
Yeah, no, he could well be right. Ed Stafford's a bit of a legend as well. Like he is, he's lived his life, hasn't he?
And I think he continues to live his life. The stuff he does is absolutely incredible. I mean, I encourage anyone to read his book about walking the Amazon. If you don't want to read it, there's DVDs out as well. He spent 2 years walking across the Amazon, the first ever person to do it. For me, he's a personal hero of mine. Carry on talking about what you were saying there about your heroes.
Yeah, there's one that's a lot closer to home that I think we both know. He'll never thank me for saying anything like this. Like, it's a guy called James Phelan.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so
the man that has done everything, I would say.
Yeah. So when I was like a young baby diver, I had this pretty gnarly old wooden diver called Sharpie, and Sharpie used to tell me all these stories of this great man called Jim Phelan, who'd went up Everest, but unfortunately, when he was up there, he suffered from altitude sickness, but he pushed his body that far that he'd taken a heart attack. But he'd made it back down to base camp, and they wanted to try and get him off the hill as quick as they could. They wanted to fly him off, by helicopter off, and he said no, Ginger wouldn't do that. He walked down like. Now some of these stories I could be massively exaggerating.
But I mean, that's the story I've heard, so I don't think it's grown too many legs. So it must be close to the truth. And I hope one day we get Ginge on here, because he is a very interesting man, and I think you told me he is writing a book actually.
Yeah, I think Ginge is. He's actually walking down at the section this week. I just seen him earlier on today.
Sorry, being slightly out the loop, I didn't quite get the connection about. Have you guys have both met him and you both know him? He's a diver.
Yeah, both know Ginge.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
The great thing about Ginge is he's just this quiet little man. When I first met Ginge, you had something pictured in your head of this massive ogre of a man that's done all these great things. And you met him, and he's just like this little quiet man that's not really got much hair.
He clearly was Ginger at one point in his life, I guess.
Yeah.
Like me.
Yeah.
I can say that being a Ginger, otherwise, that might be a not PC.
Yeah, exactly. But I think every young diver gets told stories of James Phelan. Is something that in the diving branch there's not many people like him. Actually, I don't think there's many people like him in the Navy.
No, I don't think so. He is an extraordinary person, and like I said, I hope we do actually get him on at some point.
Yeah, hopefully you do. It's the modesty or the understatement of a man that's done that much, and very little people know about him.
I have one sort of, maybe not quite final, but one of the final questions for you, and that is, do you have a fear? Do you have any fear for this expedition in particular? A personal fear, maybe.
I think, yeah. Well, we all have fears in life. It's how you deal with the fears that matter.
personally have I don't have huge issues with height, but I'm aware of height. There's nothing about the sea worries me, nothing about the cold worries me. I think I understand what's going to come that way, but certainly the height of things up in the glaciers. I know, for example, when I was in Austria just past the first time, we were walking down the glacier. There was I had two people roped onto myself, Emily and Alex, and they had to cross this part of the glacier. It was a big old jump, and it was a long way down. And I remember thinking for the first time, I was like, I'm out of my comfort zone here. I've not felt that for a long, long time, where I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm standing there, cussing and swearing to myself, I'm going to have to do this jump. And then just eventually I was like, right, I'll do it. And then threw myself out with everything I had. But yeah, it's quite a bizarre scenario.
I guess this is, partly what this expedition's about, to put you out of your comfort zone and find something new inside you that you never knew you had. Obviously, you don't have to go outside your comfort zone almost, to die. But, a small thing like that, I mean, I say a small thing, I've never done it. I mean, it sounds extraordinary. Crossing a glacier like that, it would be terrifying. I applaud you for what you're doing, because it is actually going to be an amazing expedition.
Yeah, I thought so. But the signs are good at the moment for a great 6 weeks down in Antarctica. That's for sure.
I know you haven't even started or finished this next expedition, but do you see yourself following that sort of trend and following the heroes that you've listed and talked about, and carrying on that push for adventure and expeditions, and being involved in, maybe it'd be kind of hard to be involved in anything much bigger than what you're doing now, but involved in more expeditions in the future?
Yeah, I'd love to. We all have our goals that we want to do in life, and there's no point in resting on your laurels. Once you've done something like this, you want to try and improve, and you want to inspire others within the Navy. This is the whole way through this expedition. There's been a big push upon trying to big up the adventurous training world in the Navy, and if I can do that in any way, that'd be brilliant. But on a more personal, I'd love to give getting to the poles a crack. The South Pole was. I grew up in stories of Scott and Amundsen racing to the South Pole, and with obviously Scott's ship Discovery just up the road.
Not too far away from us at all, in Dundee.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you grow up in around that area and you're going through Dundee and you see this ship, you're going to be asking your mum and your dad what this ship is, and from there it just grew this great fascination with the Antarctic and the harshness and the great men that conquered it, or didn't conquer it in Scott's expedition.
It's heartening to know that there are still people out there, men and women, who still have that drive and thirst for adventure that those guys of old had. And we sometimes think that it's been lost, and you often hear people say they don't make men like that anymore. But I think we do. We do. There are. You've talked about quite a lot of them. I mean, Sir Ranulph Fiennes is a fantastic example, and the stuff he still does to this day, and he's getting on in years as well. There are
exactly.
There's a lot of people doing a lot of great things, and what you guys are doing, your team is one example of that, and it's fantastic. And I think more people need to sort of pay attention to these, because I think adventure and exploration is what makes us human, and it's certainly what all of our foundations have been built on.
Oh, exactly. I think everyone's got it in them. I just think that sometimes people put too many limits on their life, and limits only hold you back. So if you get involved and you give it your best shot, and you try new things, you try and explore, you try and conquer, effectively, is however small that may be, the next time you do it, you're going to try and do something better, you're going to try and do something bigger. And if you keep going like that, I don't think you can go too far wrong. You just got to find somewhere to start.
Very, very true. And just on a final note here, I mean, we're going to try and catch up with you. You know, I've already spoken to you. Probably not during the expedition. It's going to be a very busy time for you. And like you said, you're probably not even going to be able to speak to your wife, let alone try and speak to us. But if possible, we will try and speak to you when you finish the expedition and maybe when you're on the Falklands, just for a 2-minute phone call.
Yeah, I'm sure that wouldn't be an issue.
But in the meantime, we will be following you, and I encourage anyone that's listening to follow you guys on Facebook and on Twitter, and I'll also have the link for the Antarctic Endurance webpage online.
Yeah, we'll whenever we see new links coming up from you, we'll stick them on our own on our own sites as well, just so everybody who's following us can keep up to date with what you guys are doing as well.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for your time,
We're
Chris.
very excited about this expedition, and I hope it all goes well for you, and we'll keep in contact.
Yeah, good luck to everyone who's on it.
That's great. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Into the Wilderness podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed having Chris on today, and I learnt a few things myself. Now, there was one thing that we ran out of time to talk about, and that is the fact that Chris is in fact a world record holder. In March this year, himself and a few other men from Northern Diving Group broke the world record for cycling underwater. They cycled underwater in full operational gear. Now, they didn't just break the world record, they destroyed the world record. The original record was 162 kilometers. They did 1,001 miles. An amazing feat, and all for charity as well, so well done on them. Now, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have David from Always Hunting, and we're going to be talking about his latest film, Heritage. That will be on our Facebook page. I encourage everyone to go and watch it. It's going to be a great podcast, mainly talking about hunting and a few other things as well. Now, remember, the podcast is out once every 2 weeks. It is on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes. Thank you very much for listening.
This podcast has once again been brought to you by the Scottish Association for Country Sports.